Tropical trouble possible in the Gulf, where a tropical storm could form and potentially even a hurricane by the time we get into the week ahead, with its eyes set on the Gulf coastline. Welcome in, folks. Great to see you on this Sunday. And if you're new to the channel, welcome in. My name's Gerald. I'm a meteorologist at WCCB Charlotte, and I'm here to give you the latest on this tropical trouble that we're monitoring in the Gulf. Right now, the system's still in the Atlantic, but eventually going to cross the Florida Peninsula and get into an area that has rocket fuel ocean temperatures to potentially take advantage of by the time we go out throughout the coming days. That'll be the big topic in today's video. Now, if you haven't already, go ahead, like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell for the latest notifications so you're up to date with the always changing model data and my analysis of that data as we continue working along through hurricane season here. And so far, it's been I would say a somewhat active start to the season. Chantal, about a week or two ago now, did bring, plenty of impacts and even flooding rains for some of us. And then we had our B-name storm, which ended up going into Mexico while weak, unfortunately did contribute to the flooding in Texas as well. So we've already seen the power that water can have this hurricane season, even outside of hurricane season, just with the summer rains we've seen. Again, unfortunately, just catastrophic flooding through portions of the country. We'll also talk about that here later on in the video. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and dive on into things and start just talking about what we're seeing out there. We're going to start with the tropics today, and go ahead and let me know in the comments if you're a returning viewer or if you're a new viewer as well as we go ahead and start this segment. All right, here we go. This is what we're watching. This is what is going to try to become our D-name storm. Dexter would be that name on the list. Right now, off the Carolina and Georgia coastline, as well as the Florida coastline here. And you can see, we've got a big bubbling up of convection to start this Sunday. And I'll tell you, anytime you get these storms that kind of have this small, compact look at the start of their lives, generally, it's a little bit easier for them to try to develop into something compared to the bigger storms that maybe need a little bit more time to consolidate. So this one, again, while not a storm yet, already looking pretty impressive here off portions of the southeastern coastline. And we are seeing convection stay, I would say, relatively stable, meaning it's not pulsy. If it kind of goes up and down, it's not super conducive for tropical development, but this, a relatively steady area of deep convection. So already, notable kind of look to this system as we're starting off this Sunday and in and out the work week, or in and out the week in general, I should say, and getting ready to start the work week. Now, let's take a look at the latest from the National Hurricane Center. They are giving this a 20% chance right now of developing. I'll tell you, though, I think by the time we go into this afternoon, that's going to get bumped up probably to a 30, maybe even higher than that by this evening. But right now, still only a 20% chance of development. National Hurricane Center normally takes it a little bit more precautious with their outlooks, and understandable, obviously. But again, like I said, I think that number will probably go up, and you'll see why due to some of the data we're about to take a look at. On radar, you can see this thing as well. Again, a lot of thunderstorm activity here off the Florida coastline. Obviously not an eye associated with this thing or anything like that yet. Still not even a named storm. But again, has that look of the beginnings of something for sure, I would say, there off the Florida coastline before eventually some upper level winds push this thing across the peninsula and into the Gulf by the time we get into the week ahead. So you can already see the groundwork being laid for the potential of a storm. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some model data, and you'll see why we're watching for tropical development. Well, the number one ingredient for a tropical storm or hurricane to try to develop, I would say, are sea surface temperatures. If you're in the wintertime, you're obviously not going to get anything because the storm just doesn't have that energy under it to pick up here in the form of latent heat release and end up, becoming stronger. But I'll tell you, we've got plenty of very warm sea surface temperatures right in the path of this thing. In fact, the warmest in the Atlantic right now is right where this potential storm will be going. Again, right now, kind of over this portion of the Gulf Stream, probably helping to give it that pretty good characteristics today on satellite. Eventually, though, like we said, crossing the Florida Peninsula and getting right into this pocket where we have sea surface temperatures of, upper 80s to low 90s in Fahrenheit, nearly 30, 31 degrees Celsius. Folks, you only need about 27 degrees Celsius to support tropical development. You get, up to 30, 31 Celsius, or in the upper 80s in Fahrenheit. It's a rocket fuel for these storms to try to develop. And like we said, the warmest portion of the ocean here is exactly where this potential Dexter will be going. It's not the only thing that you need for tropical development. Another key ingredient is moisture. Are we going to have moisture in the Gulf as we keep tracking this storm? Let's back it up a little bit. This is where we're at right now. This is, in fact, tomorrow morning, so we'll go out a little bit further in time. A relatively moist field here over Florida associated with this storm system. A little bit of drier air in and around, so not a pristine environment by any means, but I would say overall pretty moist field here as depicted by our European model. Now we'll keep it going. This crosses the Florida Peninsula, and here we go. This is by Wednesday morning and going into Wednesday afternoon. You can see a lot of green in here. Yeah, that's moisture. That's conducive for tropical development. So at this point, again, this would be Wednesday. This is now getting back into the Gulf. We've got very warm sea surface temperatures, and we've got enough moisture. Again, not pristine. You can see some pockets of drier air generally around, but not bone dry air by any means, just more, I'd say, about average humidity values for this time of year. So we've got those two ingredients. Let's take a look at one more. And if there's any ingredient right now that I would say might be in the biggest detriment to this storm, probably going to be the upper level winds. And generally what you want is, if you're a hurricane, that is, not for us, obviously, we're going to try to avoid that. But if you're a hurricane and you're trying to develop, what you want to see in the upper levels is winds separating or diverging. That helps kind of fan you out. That creates even more lift at the surface. That lift lowers the pressure, increases the winds, and thus means a stronger storm. So right now, what are we looking at? Well, this afternoon. We've got an upper level high pressure or anticyclone parked over the southeast. That is helping to, again, create some upper level divergence and thus some low level lift. Now, again, the center of this thing's over here. So we've got pretty low level winds, but and even some separating winds. So, pretty conducive already for this system. As we go ahead into time, though, you'll notice some of these upper level winds get a little bit stronger. We'll go to where we left off here. This is Tuesday into Wednesday. Remember, at this point, the system in the Gulf, and I think we're going to see a pretty good ribbon of winds in the upper levels that become parallel, meaning they're no longer separating. They're kind of riding over the same area, and that will hopefully help to keep this at bay and keep us from, hitting anything super big. But really, that's the main downside I see right now for this storm in terms of the data that we're seeing. Got warm sea surface temperatures, relatively okay moisture values, nothing crazy conducive. And then the wind shear, I would say, would be the most hostile element right now for this storm, with pretty good upper level winds here in the range of 30 to 40 knots or so. So we're going to hope that keeps where it's at. But I'll tell you, anything changes this upper level anticyclone, I guess I should draw an H instead of an L if it's anticyclone. If that were to move down over the Gulf, then it'd be a different ballgame. We'd have more upper level support for development. So a lot of details to iron out here, but trust me, we've got enough signs here that point to the potential of development. And with that said, now let's go and take a look at some model data. I'll show you exactly what this could look like on the ground. Well, taking a look at some brand new model data here. This is the GFS American model, brand new run. I mean, it's literally running as I'm talking right now. Let's see what it shows. Now, this is a vorticity map, or kind of a spin map, if you will. Basically, this is where the storm is right now. Not hard to find off the southeast coastline. And just above the surface, we do have some rotation associated with this. In a cyclonic manner. So, we've got the low-level spin. Now, the question is that going to become more compact and become a storm? Well, according to the American model here, again, it kind of gets its act together a little bit, moves over the Florida Peninsula. That would be overnight Monday. And then here we go, waking up Tuesday, or really I should say going to bed on Tuesday and working into our Wednesday. The system trying to get back over the Gulf. Now, notice, kind of falls apart a little bit. We lose that pretty cyclonic flow due to that land interaction over the peninsula of Florida, then tries to become, a little more impressive again. We've got the spin in the Gulf, but then gets pulled up eventually right into the New Orleans area as really not a whole lot of anything, just an open wave with some rainfall, and then works off into the Mississippi River Valley. That's the GFS. What about the European model? Honestly, pretty similar look on the European here. We'll kind of breeze through it. Very similar. Gets back over the Gulf here by, this will be Wednesday morning on the European. Keeps on going. It stays relatively weak, but, almost picture perfect compared to the GFS. We've got this weak area of spin over the New Orleans region and, again, working inland towards the Mississippi River by the time we get to around Thursday or Friday, according to our two major models. That's not all, though. We did get a brand new model run this morning from the Icon model. This is the German model. And the Icon, I'll be honest with you, is kind of hit or miss. Sometimes it's a slam dunk. Other times it's kind of out in la-la land a little bit. but it shows a picture that's a little bit different than the other two models. Now, this is your more typical pressure and rainfall map. Obviously, the rain in the green and the pressure with the number there with the L symbol. Starts like the other two, pretty weak system, gets into Florida, a lot of rain for Tuesday, it looks like for the peninsula there, then gets into the Gulf by overnight Tuesday and then into the start of Wednesday. And notice this thing starts to ramp up pretty quickly down to, about 1,007 millibars. That's a tropical storm by Wednesday evening over the Gulf. Keeps booking it west, gets stronger, and then it's south of New Orleans by overnight Thursday as a strengthening tropical storm hits the overdrive and turns into a hurricane and works, generally towards the Louisiana-Texas coastline. Now, let's pause for a second. Is this a forecast? Is this exactly what's going to happen? Nada. This is not the GM forecast, but as you know on the channel, I'll show you the possibilities and show you why some models might be showing what they're showing. And like we saw earlier, warm sea surface temperatures, relatively conducive winds, and moisture content. So this would be a possibility. If the upper level winds especially relax a little bit, I could definitely see something a little bit closer to this, or at least something a little more likely to be a storm. Let me show you something else as well. This is brand new this year for the 2025 hurricane season. The Google AI model. I know the AI craze is going crazy, and Google now having their own model. I'll tell you, in private testing last year, this model did quite well actually during the 2024 hurricane season. So what does it show? And this is going to be a little bit different. This is going to be with ensemble members and kind of like spaghetti plots in a way. So let's time it out for you. I'm going to refresh it here just to make sure that we do have the latest data, and it looks like it. So we'll go ahead and zoom in. This is the morning run of the model. We'll take a look at the Gulf, and I'm going to turn on wind speed color. So over here on the left, you see this. The colors that you see with the dots that are about to pop up are correlated with that chart over there on the left. So I'll try to explain that a little bit more as we go ahead. All right, here we go. This is by the time we get into, let's see here, if we have a time frame. I'm new to this model as well. This is around Tuesday night into Wednesday, it looks like. So here we go. We've got these dots starting to show up in the Gulf. So you can see just offshore of Tampa Bay, we've got a couple of tropical storm dots now showing up, and even one Category 1 hurricane dot. Again, one dot does not mean everything, but you get the point here. Now keep it going. Now watch how they kind of move in unison. Some of them becoming stronger, and we've got 4 dots here, not a ton, but you get the point. Some of the members saying, yeah, this could form into something. We've got a tropical storm member, even a couple of Category 1 to 2 hurricane members showing that potential before eventually working up again, kind of where the GFS and European model had it. So, not anything that I'd be overly concerned about right now. I would not start boarding up by any means, but we need to watch this, and you're going to want to come back tomorrow for another update on the tropics because things look to be heating up. All right, let's take a look now at normal types of weather over the lower 48 and give you a latest look at that forecast. We'll take a look out there right now. Unfortunately, flooding continues to be the main concern across much of the country. I mean, folks, Texas cannot catch a break. All these bright green boxes, these are flash flood and flood warnings between San Angelo and San Antonio. Luckily, unfortunately, again, Kerrville's still in one of these, but the worst of the flooding has been north of Kerrville, where unfortunately they were just hammered not long ago. But things are already easier to flood now. We've had saturated soils, and this is not helping at all. So that has been a big story we talked about in yesterday's video. Unfortunately, ended up verifying in the way that you don't want to see. Outside of there, flooding also a concern up here into eastern Oklahoma here from Muskogee over towards the Red River, towards Sherman and Paris, Texas, all points in between. Again, running the risk of some flooding potential. We've got flooding potential in New Mexico here with these green boxes. And then also the chance of some flooding in the mid-Atlantic. From upstate New York all the way back down into Virginia. So that's been the big story. You can see these complexes of storms. It's little pieces of energy moving over a very moist atmosphere. And unfortunately, that's just a very conducive setup for flooding rains. And we'll take a look at the upper level map again this afternoon. What is it supposed to look like? Well, kind of more of the same. We've got a very active northern stream of energy here. We've had big storms into British Columbia and then back out through the other side of Canada, some of them even dipping as far south as the US border. But what's been happening with these storms is they leave back behind these boundaries, and these boundaries just have nothing to move them. Very slow summertime air masses and they get stuck and they just sit over the same areas and unfortunately lead to higher end rainfall chances. That's exactly, again, what has happened. You can see this is a boundary right here from, well, where we have the flooding in Texas up through portions of the Ohio Valley, another little boundary here over the mid-Atlantic and Northeast. That's another focal point for flooding potential. So you get the idea here on why we're running into this problem, and it looks to remain a problem. I mean, just slow moving boundaries across portions of the country. You can see here by Tuesday into Wednesday of the week ahead, more vigorous looking storm systems working back into the northern tier of the country. Those are going to bump up rain chances again, and even maybe some severe weather potential. We'll need to watch with those. Speaking of severe weather, here is the latest severe weather forecast for today. From the Storm Prediction Center, again, you see basically where we have the boundaries, we have chances of strong to severe storms. Highest area today will be up into the northeast, and the kind of good news, relatively speaking, low end tornado threat today. Little area here into the Cape Girardeau area towards Paducah, southern Illinois, southwestern Indiana here, all the way back to Jonesboro, Blytheville, and into Union City, Tennessee. Under that risk. So small and tornado threat today. Really the highest threat, going to be wind by a mile, I'd say. Anyone shaded in on this map could see strong gusty winds today with any of those storms that develop. Pretty common stuff for this time of the year. Get on into your Monday to start the week. Only one little area to watch. I told you, new storms moving into the northern tier of the country. Again, going to increase the chance of a couple strong to severe storms tomorrow into the Dakotas, potentially. And yeah, you guessed it, we'll do it all again on Tuesday, again in the northern tier of the country where we have stronger pieces of energy to support a higher and severe weather potential. All right, flooding is the other concern, and we're at a heightened risk again today. This is a moderate risk of flash flooding, of excessive rainfall. You got to be on your A game today. Again, in Kerrville, Fredericksburg, Brady, Gatesville, Killeen, Medina, this portions of Texas over towards Rock Springs, Junction, the highway, Interstate 10 corridor, the Texas or U.S. Highway 87 and 190 corridor. Those are the areas you need to be on guard today, again, for the potential of flash flooding. But I'll caution you, anyone shaded in on this map, again, could see excessive rainfall today. So play it safe, have a way to get watches and warnings. If there's anything we've learned so far this month with these flooding events is, generally speaking, you've got the lead time. You just got to listen to it. You got to have a way to get that notification, whether it be your phone or weather radio or a local meteorologist. Just have a reliable source to get these flash flood warnings is going to be the key. All right, let's take a look at some mesoscale data and show you those short-term models, zoom things out a little bit, show you the rest of the week, and then let you go. Latest mesoscale models, again, showing that potential of flash flooding concerns, as we've been talking about. Here's this afternoon. Notice radar beginning to blossom by the afternoon and evening hours from the northeast, especially the interior here, New York State, up into portions of Quebec and Ontario, the St. Lawrence River Valley specifically, all the way back down the Appalachia chain into the southeast. Pockets of heavy thunderstorms, flooding potential, and some downburst potential with those as well. Another complex of storms out here where we have a small tornado threat. Do not rule out the concerns there. And then heavy flooding rains back into Texas and portions of Oklahoma. That's the theme today. More of the same, unfortunately. And again, something that we need to be weather wise on and staying weather aware. That's today. Overnight tonight, most of the rain calms down a little bit, dies down in a relatively pulsy manner. The storms are more pulsy generally with the summertime, and that's what we're seeing. Although, again, cannot rule out rain for some of us into the overnight hours, especially where those upper level pieces of energy are kind of riding through and bringing in the higher potential to keep that lift going into the overnight hours. Now, keep it going here for your Monday afternoon. You won't believe it, but we're going to do it all again. Another day of some rain beginning to work on into the east, from the northeast down into the southeast, the Florida Peninsula with that tropical system looking like higher end rainfall chances, and again, keeping rain back out into the southern plains, where we'll need to continue to monitor the flooding potential. Overnight Monday, you can see, again, per usual, the storms kind of died down a little bit. Still some areas holding on to rain. And then we were waking up Tuesday morning as far out as this model goes. And you'll never guess what Tuesday is going to hold, but probably a lot more of the same for many of us. All right, let's take a look now at the entire country. Let's time out the upper level systems, when we could see more rain and exactly how much rain is on the way over the next 7 to 10 days. Well, as I said, where the upper level storms go, the surface storms are going to go, and that's really going to be the theme here. So let's back it up. Again, this is today into tomorrow. We've got just this boundary draped across the eastern U.S. That's firing up showers and storms. The next more pronounced storm system, I would say, is going to work in to the Pacific Northwest here. You can see it there by overnight Monday into Tuesday. and that could be a focal point for storms. And here we go, by the middle of the week, not one, not two, but three different areas I'm seeing with stormy potential, and arguably four if you want to count that Gulf area as well. So another active week ahead, I'd say, in the rain department, with these storm systems working on by and continuing to just do more of the same for a lot of us. Because of that, precipitable water, or the amount of rain that can get wrung out with these storms, is at a high, and that is typical for July. I'll add this little segment in here on the fly. I've seen so many articles and reports about how crazy it is. We've had all these 1 in 500 or 1 in 1,000 year floods. Folks, I'll be honest with you, it's really not that unusual for July. This is when it happens. Again, look at these colors on the map. This is pretty typical. You've got a ton of rain that can get squeezed out in short periods of time with such a summer air mass. And you might get 3 or 4 1 in 500 event floods, but if they're in all different parts of the country, is it really that surprising? I mean, the country's pretty big, so it's not unheard of to get multiple record-breaking events. It happens all the time. So, just figured I'd throw that in there. This is not some crazy change up from the usual for the summertime. This is pretty typical stuff. All right, so again, precipitable water is going to be a concern. You can see a lot of moisture in the atmosphere to get wrung out by these systems as they swing on by. So check that out down towards the Gulf with that next system. We're going to need to watch for flooding rains with that as well. That gets us all the way to about 7 days out from now. More of the same on the way, and that means more rain on the way. So here we go. The latest European model will pick up where we left off. Here's Tuesday morning. We've got a new storm, again, back out of the plains. Maybe some severe weather potential with that. Definitely some heavy rain potential associated there. We've got leftover boundaries into the east, the southeast, and into the southern plains. You can see pulsy afternoon convection just going to continue. I'm not going to stop every day here, but you get the idea. A lot more of the same coming in for many folks here over the week ahead. What I will kind of stop and show you is the rainfall map. This is the next 7 to 10 days from our Blenda model, so this is probably a pretty conservative output. A couple hot spots to notice. Florida, out towards the Gulf Coast. Tropical trouble means more rainfall, so watch for flooding rains here. Again, we'll get more into exact totals as we know what this system's going to turn into, but at the very least, heavy rain looks to be on the way. Down into Texas, again, today going to be a focal point for heavy rainfall potential and flooding potential as well in some of the places that have already been hit so hard. So need to keep an eye out for that. The eastern part of the country, east of the Appalachia chain, I would say high in rainfall chances for sure over the next 7 to 10 days. Could see flooding potential there. And then into the Midwest, where we have this train of storms coming in out of Canada, also needs to be watched. So that's what we're seeing right now. A lot to talk about. I think the tropics are still the main story, but the flooding potential, also something that we definitely need to keep up with. All right, folks, y'all have a great day. Stay safe. And if you live locally, I'll see you tonight on WCCB Charlotte and ABC Columbia. And I'll see y'all then. All right, bye.